Hi, it's Dr. JP, and I'm here with Leo, and
Yeah, but you told me you were gonna read the monkey story.
I told you we were going to read the monkey story?
Yeah, you know that the story with the little monkey guy. What's his name?
Are you, are you talking about Curious George?
Yeah, that's the guy. Can we hear that one? I really like that one. I want to hear it again.
Get your glasses on straight. Alright, I'm going to read it, Leo, but you got to promise me you're not going to interrupt me when I'm reading it, okay? Because every time I read that one to you, you always seem to interrupt me. Do you understand? Okay. So, I need you to quietly, because we want everyone else to be able to hear the story. I want you to quietly take a seat while I bring the camera over for a little Curious George. And can you just take a little, here, I'll give you a good spot right there. Scoot yourself over a little so we have a little room there. You okay, Leo? Can you see?
Yeah, I can see it.
Alright, so, now you know, Leo, this is an old story. This is Curious George. This is the first one by H.A. Ray. And this goes way back, before I was born at least. And I think this is the one that started it all. So some of the stuff may look a little old because this is old. It's almost 80 years old, I think. Let me check how old. Yeah, it's almost 80 years old, Leo.
Can you just start the book now, okay?
Yeah. Alright, so let's start. Oh, I love this story. It's one of my favorites from the old days. This is George, and he lived in Africa, and he was very happy, but he had one little fault. He was just too curious. And, well, one day there was this man, and he saw George. Well, George saw the man first, and the man had a yellow straw hat on. And the man saw George, and he said, that's a nice little monkey swinging up there. I'd like to take him home with me. And the man put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. And he came down from the tree, and he looked at the large yellow hat, and of course, well, the hat had been on the man's head. George thought, maybe I'll just put it on my head. It will be fun. And then he picked it up and he put it on. And, well, the hat covered George's head, but he couldn't see. And then the man quickly grabbed him and put him in a bag. George was caught. Poor George. It's almost like he was kidnapped. And you know what? The man with the yellow hat, he put George in a little boat and he rowed them towards a big ship out in the ocean. And George, he was sad, but he was still a little curious where he was going.
And he's kidnapping him from his home.
Shh, Leo. And on the big ship, things started to happen. And the man took off his bag. And George, he sat down on a tiny little stool. And the man said, do you know what, George? I'm going to take you to the big zoo in a big city. You're going to like it there. Now you go run along and play, but don't get in any trouble, okay? And George says, I promise to be good. But you know what? It's kind of easy for little monkeys to forget, especially when you're out in the ocean. and you've never been out in a big ship in the ocean before. So, on the deck, they found some seagulls. And George wondered, how can these seagulls fly? He was very curious about that.
What does curious mean again, Doctor?
Leo, that means if you're curious, you want to find out about something. So he wants to find out.
Oh, okay.
Now, stop interrupting. I'm in the middle of this. Finally, he had to try. It looked very easy, but when he tried, what happened? First, he was flying like the seagulls, but then he fell into the water. And look at all the fish are saying, "What are you doing down here?" And that's when all the men on the boat, they were saying, "Where's George?" And the sailors were looking all around. And they looked, and then they saw him. Finally, he was in the water, struggling in the water, and they thought, "Oh my gosh, he's going to drown. Get him." And that's when they said, "Man overboard!" The sailors cried, "Man overboard!" And they threw a life belt. And George caught it, and he held on. And at last, they pulled him out of the water. And
Hey, Doctor. It looks like he's throwing up a bunch of fish.
well, Leo, that's probably because he was drowning and he swallowed a bunch of water and the fish were in the water.
Oh, okay.
After that, George was more careful to be a good monkey until at last the long trip was over and he was coming off the big boat, and he said goodbye to all the kind sailors, and he and the man with the yellow hat, they walked off the ship to the shore, and then they got to go to the city to where the man lived. And after a good meal, George got to eat a good meal, and after a good pipe.
What's he doing? Smoking that pipe. Doesn't he know that's bad for you?
Shh, Leo. I told you this was in the old days. There was a lot of people that did that.
Oh.
And then George was very, 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 very tired. So he got into his pajamas and he crawled into bed and he fell asleep at once.
Oh, he looks so cute there.
But the next morning, the man with the yellow hat, he telephoned the zoo, and George watched him. And George was fascinated. And then the man went away. And George was curious. He wanted to try that telephone too. So he got up and he started dialing numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is fun. See, that's an old phone, Leo. You had to dial it like this. With your finger. Well, guess what? Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling! George at telephone the fire station! And the firemen rushed to the telephone. "Hello, hello, hello," they said. But there was no answer. And they looked for the signal on the map. And the map showed where is that call coming from. There it is. Deet, 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 deet. They didn't know it was George. They go, "That's a real fire. Get the fire trucks. We gotta go." And hurry, hurry. And they got all the trucks and the fire engines with the hooks and ladders, and they were going, "Get out of the way, where it's an emergency fire." Now, in the old days, Leo, these are what the fire trucks look like. See? It's a little bit different than the ones that we have today. So anyway, they got to this fire, and, well, when they rushed in the house, they opened the door, and there was no fire. There was only a naughty little monkey, and he was running. And they said, "Catch that little monkey!" And George tried to run away, and they almost did catch him, but he got caught in the telephone wire. Get him! And you know what?
What?
Well, they got him.
Oh, no.
A thin fireman caught one arm, and a fat fireman, he caught the other arm of George. And they said, you know what? You fooled the fire department. We're gonna have to shut you up, or you can't do any more harm.
What's they gonna do to him?
They took him away, and they shut him away in prison.
Oh, my.
Look at this. They would just give him a little bit of food, but there was some mice in his prison cell. And he had just one little window there.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Well, George wanted to get out, so he climbed up on the window to try the bars. And that's when the night watchman came in. And he said, oh, what are you doing up there? And he got on the wooden bench to go catch George, but the watchman, he was big and heavy, and then the bed tipped over, and the watchman fell over, and quick as lightning, George, he took off running out the door because he had the door open. And there he goes. And look at all the mice. They're watching, saying, where's that monkey going? Well, he hurried through the building, and he got out onto the roof. And then he was very lucky to be a monkey. And out he walked into the telephone wires, and quickly and quietly, over the guard's head, he walked away. There's the guards down there. And he quietly walked over their heads. And he was free.
He was free?
Shh. And then down on the street outside the prison wall, there was a little girl, and she bought a balloon for her brother. And George was watching, and he was very curious about this little girl and the balloons, and he felt he had to have a bright red balloon, and he said, I'm going to get that red balloon, and he reached over to get the red balloon, but you know what happened? Instead of one balloon, he got the whole bunch. And in an instant, the wind lifted George up and whisked them all away. And George was like, ah! And then the balloon man was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh my, look at the monkey, he's got the balloons. He's going up in the air. And George was holding on very tightly with both hands because he was a little bit scared. But then he went higher up. And the houses looked like toy little houses. And the people looked like little dolls, and George was frightened, and he held on very tight. And well, at first the wind blew in great gusts, then it quieted, and finally it stopped blowing, and George was very tired. And all of a sudden he floated down onto the top of a traffic light. And the traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do, and he heard someone say, George! George! Who was it? It was his friend, the man with the yellow hat, and George was like, hey! I'm up here. And George was very happy, and the man was very happy too. And George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat, he put him under his arm, and he paid the balloon man for all the balloons that George had taken, and the balloon man was happy. And then George and the man, they climbed into the car, and they went all the way. Well, did they go home? No. They went to the zoo. What a nice place for George to live. And he got to bring all the balloons there, and he gave them to all the animals, and that is the end of the first story. Curious George.
I want to hear the next part.
Leo, one part at a time, okay?